Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Stuff and Such. This time of year, it's always hard to hold off turning the animals loose on all this fresh, lush green grass. Animals don't really like it looking over the fence at all the wonderful green grass that's just over there, and they're stuck there eating dry old hay. But there is a fundamental reason why we have to do that. See, grass that grows in a simoing curve, I'll put up a little graph here for you to see it. And basically what it shows is that grass, it grows very slowly at the start, and then it picks up speed, and then all of a sudden you reach an explosion point where that grass grows from the early infant stage to heading to maturity and starting to its reproductive state. But it's not only what we see above the ground that is truly important. Because in fact, there's another sigmoid curve of that same shape, that S curve, and that is a few weeks behind, and that curve represents the roots for these plants. So the more greenery you have sticking above the earth, well, the roots are actually kind of behind catching up, but it's using all that extra solar panels of grass blades to really start punching in those roots. So then once we allow those roots to get nice and deep and prepare for the oncoming summer dry patch, once those roots are established, then we can let our animals in. And then once we take a quick grazing off it, those established roots with stored up energy, they have that potential just to spring right back. Whereas if we let them out right now, the animals would eat that grass right down. There'd be no roots left, and then come the hot summer weather that comes with also dryness, those plants will just kind of go stunted and dormant, and they'll really set them back. It's an exponential discipline. You get really bit for being too eager. I really like this diagram. It shows the curve, how it describes how forages grow over time. Provides a bit of a framework to making decisions about when to introduce and take animals out of your grazing paddocks. So in that first phase, that says it's the lowest section of the curve. Because they've been recently cut, they can only have a very low level of that photosynthesis and very little leaf production per day because of how short it's become. That second phase that we see on the curve, where it's heading steep up and down, that's the phase you want to be in. It says you don't want to be above or below it. If you go below it, you can really delay your recovery time, and then you have to wait even longer. But if you go in and out really quick, that's when you'll be able to get all your benefits. So while everything looks nice, green and lush at the moment, you have to be super careful that you don't get over ambitious and by the yelling and blaring of the cows that want to be let out. You kind of have to show a little bit of tough love and give them a little grain here and there to quiet them down, show them that you do actually care about their feelings. But it is truly critical this time of year. We only really have from, say, end of May to October 1st, you start running out of grass again. So that's about 4 months. If you kind of blow it, you lose those 4 months of essentially free food. And that's where you can make your money when raising livestock, is if you take advantage of that, of the nature's solar panels, the solar system. We need to totally take full advantage of that that period of time. Because if we have to spend an extra month feeding hay, well, that's when you start getting into your cost side of the equation again. So that's why I unfortunately have to let my poor animals sit where they're sitting and just hold off maybe another couple weeks, feed up the last of my bales. Ideally, I'd even get up to a month of just holding and holding. Where I put my cows and sheep, the sheep I got them in a corner of pasture it's quite a dry part of the pasture with very little topsoil. It never does exceptionally well. So I put them up in that corner this year, pen them in there, and that way they'll put lots of manure, lots of urea, lots of seed from those hay bales. Just a lot of biomass will get dumped in there. And likewise with the cows across the road. First year I've ever had cows across the road over there. I've always aspired to do that, never had the opportunity or the quite, I guess, need. But this year I made it a point that I was going to get cows across the road. So we fenced in the pasture we call belly button, put the cows in there. It's mostly a bush lot, but I'm feeding hay there, so they'll just kind of meander around eating little flowers and spending a bit of time. But as they do that, they'll be spreading grass seed from all that hay, which will pay off in years to come. And likewise in the other pasture that somehow got named giblets, no idea how. That's where we got our 2 milk cows, and they'll hang out there, and they'll probably go out onto pasture a little earlier. They have access to about a 15-acre paddock where their strain won't be very noticeable. And I'd like to get them onto some good high-quality feed and get some condition back on them. Getting a little lack. Anyways, that's just a little heads up of what we're doing, why it's so important to really pay attention to your land. And it sometimes there's just things that you make mistakes and you don't realize you're making mistakes, and that's fine. A couple years ago I really found I needed to smarten up and pay a bit more attention to how I'm moving things around, and how a simple management, just keeping something somewhere or something off somewhere, makes such a big difference. And that the length of time spent somewhere is also important, as well as the time of year. I found that when you start getting into the late part of the grazing season, what'll happen is grass will stop growing. But if you just kind of figure whatever, let the animals clean up what's there and it'll come back in the spring, actually you're taking away from next year's crop, next year's springing up. So that's also something you need to be aware of. It's just when the time of year comes that things are winding down, it's time to put the animals up into containment and let the land get prepped for hibernation, so that next spring you can see the benefits of that. Anyways, just thought I'd share little tidbits that I picked up. Anyways, bye for now.